public awareness, and we're going to highlight that this is an info war, and that we have to fight against our own government to show people what the truth is about these legislative bills for censorship. You think SOPA was bad? There's like 2 or 3 brothers. There's a big brother in Europe called ACTA, A-C-T-A. I can't take credit for this, but Anonymous was very strong in tweeting about it and getting information about it. And within 2 days, there was a huge street protest in Poland. I don't know if you can see the photo, but
yeah.
That's just one of the pictures of people in the state. You know, Anonymous helped get this forward, and they also, I think, DDoS the Poland's government websites.
Yeah.
And then the government took notice, and they started reading about ACTA and realizing that the public was not in favor of this. And Poland, I don't know if they ratified it, but they signed it, and the parliament in Poland got so upset about it that they themselves protested.
I'm so glad you have that image.
In session.
Can you just hang on that image for a second, and let's just absorb this. This is the Polish parliament identifying with Anonymous.
Yeah, this is huge.
Feels kind of strange.
Just take a second here.
Yeah, it's strange bedfellows, but right, I mean, you know, it's 2012. It's an election season in the U.S. I think Anon needs to get more politically involved, because really that's the battle for the truth and for the battle for democracy, and all the censorship, legislative attempts that are going on right now are just a way to squash the truth and subvert democracy.
Yeah. This is a group, stay with this image for just a second. Keep in mind, Anonymous, a few years previous to this, is posting disgusting things on 4chan, is coming up with Rickrolling, which is doing lolcats. And fast forward to this image, what the hell's going on here? Like,
that's the same question we all asked ourselves when we saw that image. Like, you know, I remember the night that we argued over which mask we were going to go with for the first protest, and I still have the actual Google Doc where we had the checklists of which masks we were choosing, and when we chose this one, and when I saw this, the first thing I thought was about that night, and honestly, how messed up it is that this is going on.
How far they've come
what
in
the hell?
This amount of time. How far and how much it's changed?
Very short amount of time to end up, you know, from where we were that night to this.
Yeah, amazing. So the other thing, Anon 9000, it occurs to me that you know, big internet companies, Google, Wikipedia, Flickr, many others, participated in the SOPA blackout, but you and others were talking about it because I was there observing long before this became part of the public discussion, and I will go so far as to say I don't think anybody would have heard about it if you guys weren't so relentless about it.
That's the key. Is you have to be relentless, and you have to basically drain every bit of your energy focusing on it and researching it, and I certainly didn't do it alone. Greg can attest to that. There were other people involved who spent far more hours researching and digging and finding out that USTR, for instance, and TPP was kicking out NGOs at hotels because they didn't want them to find out about these meetings going on, figuring out how to do censorship and how to get it deployed. And they were doing it. They even had things that were secret. Let me see if I can find some information on that. There was a secret memo. There was a memo declaring the discussions about TPP as secret, and even the memo itself was secret. You know, Cory Doctorow would call it the most batshit insane proposal of the decade. He's talking about TPP. It's the evil big brother to SOPA. And it's going to come if we don't, you know, start giving it some attention.
The first anti-ACTA website that Anonymous actually put up was surprisingly a year and a half ago. long before all of this was going on, and no one cared.
Yeah.
We went to the press. I actually helped them set up their hosting to get that site alive and everything. And you know, I've been in the press enough that I have personal phone numbers. I was calling people, begging, you know, please cover this. No one cared. And you know, so people kind of gave up. I mean, the site sort of stayed updated, and then this next round of, you know, attention from Anonymous started to happen, and those people again showed back up. Here's a site, all the right information, all the original copies, the newer copies, everything that's been ratified, and the press still didn't care. And so, what did Anonymous do to get the press to care? They DDoSed a bunch of websites, and in the end, those DDoSes were specifically meant just to get the press to print the damn story. A lot of the DDoSes that happen from Anonymous have nothing to do with taking down that person's website. It's meaningless. Some of the websites you take down for half an hour, what does that do? It accomplishes nothing. But what it does accomplish is this, you know, 3 or 4 paragraphs that you sent to the press saying this needs to be covered, it's important, that they ignored. Well, now a story comes out with a paragraph and a half about the DDoS, and then what you wanted them to say. And so the DDoSes are going to continue to happen because it seems to be the only way Anonymous can convince the press to actually print anything.
There is a difference, though. I mean, the DDoSes in that case in SOPA did happen after the SOPA blackout, which is a grassroots choice. I mean, people were volunteering to black out their Flickr accounts, things like that. These are individuals participating in that. And to go back to your point about people being there before and people not caring, not to stir up trouble, but Google has a you know, big lobbyist presence in Washington. You didn't hear a lot about this from them until the tipping point started happening.
Most of those companies that joined on didn't join on until the press was already starting to pay a little attention.
I don't want to.
They were helpful. It was good that they signed on, but there was definitely some press attention that brought them along.
Yeah, but there is something about that message, that continuous kind of pounding of that message that turned the tables there. But the comparison, I can just say the comparison to the civil rights movement, there's a lot of people compare DDoS to a sit-in, a virtual sit-in. So people often make comparisons to protests that happened in the 60s.
I mean, what's really different from, you know, Barack Obama sitting standing, talking at a State of the Union address and saying, you know, call your legislators, you know, slam the phone banks. What's different?
Tie up those phone lines, right?
And 1,000 people speaking, you know, sending political speech digitally to web servers. People who are, you know, what's the difference between that and 500 people jamming in a door at Christmas time, you know, DDoSing the front doors? They're all very similar. You know, you can argue it that way, at least for DDoS.
What about fear-mongering here, both sides?
Yeah, I think what I try to do is focus on what evidence we have that shows corruption and censorship. Not so much what we think they're going to do, but what they have done in the past and even very recently. But they have done what we have proven, what we have seen them do, and try to, you know, discredit them, basically. Just discredit, you know, elements within the government who are corrupt.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to focus on.
I think in the end, the thing that we have on our side is that when Anonymous does go after someone, when whoever's on this side, Anonymous, telecoms, people like me who aren't actually doing a lot of the illegal acts but are around all of this, a lot of what goes forward is the truth from this side with proof, well, if we can't really prove it, well then here's all of their emails that prove exactly what we're saying. On their side, it's nothing but fear-mongering. You know, you look to a couple weeks ago when the NSA put out that report about the power grid. That will never happen. One of the big things that we always talk about on this side is you don't go after the public. You want them on your side. You want to win. If you cut the power grid, people on life support are going to die. I mean, what use is that to the fight? You know,
the internet's going to go down.
There's an interesting point about that because the only person I heard from Anonymous who actually said that they could, you know, hack into SCADA systems and take out the power grid was Sabu.
Yeah.
Who was working for the government? Yeah.
So I wonder, did they feed him that tweet to say, and then did they hand that over to the, you know, NSA and say, hey, publish a story, push a story to the press that says that Anonymous is going to hack the power grid?
Yeah. And I will add one final piece to that one. Last year, the NSA put forward a suggestion to the government that the security of the national power grid be nationalized and it be brought all together under one organization, and it fell on deaf ears. No one cared, no one listened, the senators ignored it. And then, you know, they have Sabu under their control, and they come out fear-mongering, saying Anonymous is going to attack it. I think they were honestly just trying to raise more support for their idea of nationalizing the security of the power grid.
Yeah, they were trying to fabricate political will, basically.
Yeah.
And the movie's amazing. Go see it if you get a chance.
Oh, thanks. That's a plug for the film. Yeah.
And,
we like that.
So there's obviously some very clear ideals: democracy, equality, fighting censorship. You know, there's a code of conduct issued for Chinology. Has there been talk of issuing a code of conduct online, being that's the general domain that's being worked in?
I haven't seen talk about that. You know, one of the interesting things we had, you know, at the beginning of Chinology was a very, very small group of people. I mean, you know, before we actually put out those few videos, the biggest IRC that had Anons on it had 30 people in a channel. You know, there weren't, you know, and the channel that actually made those videos, when we first started that, there were 5 of us in there. So when we made the code of conduct, I think it was all of 8 people who took part in putting that video together. And it was actually at the prompting of an old school activist who came on saying, are you stupid sending people like that to these buildings? Some of them are going to bring bricks. They're going to yell at the cops. Please, for the love of God, put out something telling them what not to do. And he then gave us a short list of things that he thought would be good, and we agreed, and we kind of fleshed it out a little and changed it and put it out. But the problem we have now is that there's so many separate groups. You know, there's 100 IRCs I could go to, 1,000 channels, you know, so many different people that you put it out and you might get 5% of the people to pay attention at best. And the others all attack you for trying to give them rules to live by. Back then, it was relatively simple. You know, at this point, it's much more complex to get away with that.
The movie, you want to keep it relevant, you want to keep it current,
Yeah.
but you have to release it in full at some point, I'm assuming.
I have to stop at some point, yeah. I have to stop finishing it. I think, you know, I've done a number of things that you might, I kind of call this a historical documentary. It is a historical documentary. I've done this a number of times, and there's always a kind of balance between what new news story is, because it seems like it's the most important thing in the world for when it's happening, and 2 weeks later maybe it's gone, and yet some of those things are significant. So I'm often in the position of weighing the current news cycle in the broad scope of a story, and I do think that the events of Sabu and his being an informant for the FBI does warrant sort of breaking back into the film and doing it. Otherwise, you know, Anonymous will continue to do raids, and we'll have action. We'll take up causes.
And you get part 2.
And yeah, maybe part 2, maybe a sequel. But you know, I think this has been the last year and a half has been a particularly transformative time for Anonymous. Lots has gone on. A lot of things have gone on, and so this, I think, is a time capsule of that period of change and these series of events, and an attempt to understand that. And I think that there will be relevance to this last year and a half for a while, in my opinion.
I spoke to a lot of security experts, people who work in the security industry, and the impression that I got is that the reason why a lot of these Anons haven't been put in jail yet is not because they're these elite badasses, but because the FBI doesn't have the resources to take away from fighting actual threats like Al-Qaeda and going after every 14-year-old kid. Not to say that Anonymous is all 14-year-old kids.
Yeah.
But I guess like after these recent arrests, we've seen that there's probably some truth to that. And Anonymous, at least the hacktivism element of Anonymous, may have been completely infiltrated. And if they haven't yet, then they might be in future months. And I guess I'm just wondering,
maybe the anti-sec version,
right?
More than the rest, yeah.
Right. I think we'll continue to see indiscriminate attacks, but the LulzSec element.
Totally, yeah.
My main question is this going to have a chilling effect on Anonymous? Is everyone going to be terrified that the FBI is going to be able to track them down, or some other organization?
You're talking about Sabu,
right?
What
yeah,
about,
you know, that night after everyone found out what had happened, it was a bit chilling. I mean, but it was very short-lived. I mean, it went straight from, am I about to get raided because he knows things, to everyone thinking, well, you know, in between every raid so far, there's been 3 or 4 months. So if I'm gonna, I've probably got a few months. I won't know for a while. And then that switched to one of the more interesting things happen. A lot of people who we haven't seen for months, for years, showing back up, who do have that same level of talent, saying, you know, to be blunt, fuck this. And a hack happened that night, and more are lined up. I mean, you know, their FFF is still going to continue going on. In talks with a lot of those people, it's just angered them instead of scared them. And
fuck the FBI Fridays.
Yeah, I do find it interesting, the response that went on for those next few days, and it's still going on. So I don't think it's going to change much. I mean, people are just going to say, well, some of us